It is now 12 o'clock and we will call the order of the Joint Transportation Committee. I would like to read the accessibility statement and Title V non-discriminatory statement before we start. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Microphones or telephones will be used by speakers. Large print material are available upon request, advance request. If you would like either of these accommodations, please contact Mary Walden at 508-583-1833, extension 202. And also non-discriminatory rights and protection to beneficiaries with regards to the federal Title VI non-discrimination protection and state non-discrimination protection is posted in the meeting room and is available on the Old Colony Planning website. Please contact Mary Walden, 508-583-1833, extension 202 for any further information. That being said, I would probably like a roll call. Do we need a roll call vote, Charlie, or no?
Okay, yes, sir. So I'll read the communities, and if you're present, please indicate so by stating your name. So Abington.
Johnstone.
Bruce Hughes, alternate.
Thank you. Avon. Bridgewater. Okay. Brockton.
Rob May.
Hey, Rob, thank you. Duxbury. East Bridgewater. Easton.
Dave Field.
Thank you, Dave. Halifax. Hanson. Hanover. Kingston. Pembroke. Plymouth. Plimpton. Stoughton. West Bridgewater.
Mary Anderson.
Mary, thank you. And Whitman.
Here.
Thank you. And do we have anyone from MassDOT here? Okay. And Brockton
Hi,
area.
Barbara. Sorry,
I'm
Barbara
sorry.
Latino, District 5.
Hey, Barbara. And Brockton area transit.
Hi, good afternoon, Glenn Geiler, Brockton Area Transit.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone.
Bill, I did notice Jameson Shea from Hanson is in the meeting as well,
Oh, okay.
and Don Howard from Hanson.
Thank you.
We all set? Bill?
Yes, we are.
That's it. Okay, that being said, I'd like, please, if we could have a moment of silence and keep in our thoughts the family of Joyce Gardino, who is the wife of Joe Gardino. Joyce passed away this week, and please keep her in your thoughts in this moment of silence. Thank you very much for that. Okay, next on it is that we need a motion and a second to vote on the meeting minutes of September 2nd, July 2021. Excuse me, September 2nd, 2021's meeting. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
If you move, also name your town so that,
Sure. Mary Anderson, West Bridgewater.
thank you.
No problem.
Do I hear a second?
A second. Abington.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Charlie, we need to do a roll call on that or no?
Bill reads the roll.
Oh, Bill, want to do the roll call on that?
Sure. So Abington,
Yes.
Avon, Bridgewater, Brockton,
Yep.
Duxbury, East Bridgewater, Easton,
Yes.
Halifax, Hanover, Hanson. Okay, Kingston, Pembroke, Plymouth, Plimpton, West Bridgewater,
Yes.
and Whitman.
Yes. Thank you, Bill.
Welcome.
Next-
Sorry,
Next, yes,
am I included in the role or no?
Yes.
Brockton Area Transit.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thanks, Bill.
Bill will get it right one of these days.
That's
Eh.
okay. We're like 2 years in, and I think it's just long enough for all of us to forget how we're ready to go back in person. I am.
Oh.
Yeah,
So am I.
bring back the
All right,
pizza.
next is on the agenda is item 4, communication. Sean, that's your ball.
Yes, thank you, Dan. The first item is a Safe Routes to School infrastructure lunch information session. It'll be held October 15th, a week from tomorrow at 2 p.m. It will be held at, could you scroll down a little bit, please, Bill?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Nope, that's okay. It will be held at somewhere. I'm just looking to see on there. I guess it doesn't, they didn't list, but if you would like to probably just because it's being held virtually. So if you would like to attend, please click on the link provided so that you can register for the informational session and attend. The next item is another Safe Routes to School event. It is their annual Fall Summit. It'll be held October 29th at 9 a.m. It is another Zoom session. So if you would like to attend that, please click on the link attached to that. The next item is a MassDOT announcement. They are releasing new Chapter 90 informational resources. The spreadsheet that they have provides templates for such things as their Chapter 90 checklist, asset condition list, bridge inventory list, as well as other items. If you would like any more information, you can click on the hyperlinks for this announcement. And the next item is Massachusetts Project Intake Tool, MAPIT for short, 3.0 training opportunity. With this training, you will be able to learn such things as interactive forms, targeted questions to establish a richer project scope, option to upload supporting documentation, as well as other items. And the virtual classes will be held October 20th and the 27th. Please click on the following link to register and for more information. And that is all I have.
Thank you very much. At this point, we are going to jump ahead to new business item 7A, and we have a guest speaker. And if she would, Clary would like to, is she here, Bill? Are they here?
I am. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Oh,
Thank you for attending.
excellent. Thank you for inviting me. It is my pleasure to talk about this really important subject. So I don't know how much time I have on your agenda. So what do you think would be an appropriate time so that I can scale my presentation to that?
Bill, what do you think?
Yeah, we get as much time as you want. I mean, it's typically about 20 minutes or so, but
Okay, so I would like to first and foremost introduce myself, and where do I upload? How do I share? Let me see.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, I was
And
going to say, Bill, give permission for Clary to share her screen.
okay, she does have co-host capability, so she should be able to share a screen now after I stopped it. There we go.
Okay, so let me get my emails out of the way. Sorry, folks.
Interesting.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so my name is Clary Kutu. I'm Director of Environmental Services, Compliance and Sustainability for Keolis, the commuter rail system. I work very closely with my colleagues in MassDOT and MBTA. My role is specifically to address over 900 legal requirements, federal and state, across the entire state of Massachusetts and Rhode Island. I have a fiduciary responsibility, if you will, of an operation, a multi-million-dollar operation budget, and manage a portfolio of over $10 million worth of projects, all geared towards compliance, sustainability, and resiliency. I have a bachelor's degree in environmental science and economics. And today, what I would like to do is introduce you to rail vegetation management. It's one of the programs that my department oversees across the entire state of Massachusetts. And many of you folks might have already heard me do these presentations when I went through each town during the vegetation management plan review every 5 years. So today, I would like to ask that if you have any questions as I go through the slides, you hold them until the end so that I can be expeditious in covering all the information that I have for you today. So who is Keolis? Keolis is the operator for the commuter rail system. We operate across the entire 14 lines that serve approximately 142 stations. We have our headquarters in Boston, and we have been in operation since July of 2014. We have over 2,300 employees, 35 million annual passengers. Our fleet is composed of 90 locomotives, 420 coach cars. In our initial 8-year contract was extended last year to 4 years more until July 2026. We have approximately 722 million passenger miles traveled annually. And since we started in July of 2014, we have added 10,000 more trains annually. The commuter rail network, as you know, is the 5th largest private commuter rail operator in America. So Keolis is actually under contract for the 5th largest system in the US. ISO 14001 has been implemented since 2015, and we have achieved the Sustainability Apta Gold Award in 2019. So vegetation management is a critical aspect of our operations, of rail operations across the nation and across the world. And the reason why it is because vegetation along the right-of-way can actually have a significant safety impact. So the MBTA back in 2019 had an audit, and with that audit, let me read this. With that audit, the safety across all aspects of MBTA operations was highlighted as a critical aspect for control. And it requires maintenance activities that are at-risk areas, in at-risk areas in order to promote safety of passengers, protect the assets, and improve performance. So what is the regulatory framework when we're talking about vegetation along the rails right of way? So interstate commerce and railroad safety is critical because nationally, all railroads have to oblige to specific safety requirements and standards. We also have the National Uniformity of Regulation for Railroad Safety and Security, the FRA safety requirements, FTA safety requirements, and these are all on a state regulatory framework managed under the Rights of Way Management Program, and they fall under the jurisdiction of the Department of Agricultural Resources. And we also have the Department of Public Utilities, which is also a jurisdictional regulatory standard. So what are the definitions? When we talk about vegetation management plan, these are the definitions included and incorporated under the Mass DAR Rights of Way Management Program. Vegetation management is a long-term management plan for the applicant's right-of-way system, which describes the intended program for vegetation control over a 5-year period. The rights of way is any roadway or thoroughfare on which public passage is made, and any corridor of land over which facilities such as railroads, power lines, pipelines, conduits, channels, or communication lines or bicycle paths are located. In addition to that, when we're talking about rail properties and rail right-of-way, we're looking at all those assets that drive an important aspect of our regular day-to-day business operations. So anything from rails and tracks, ties, ballast, rail beds, signal, communication systems, switches, overhead catenary system, signage, traction, power substations, everything that our operations rely in order to perform in a safe manner. Also very important to note that across the entire state of Massachusetts, the MBTA has over 700 miles of track, but we also have 13 different rail lines, freight, class 1, and all of these share to some extent the passage and jurisdiction and easement of rights of way. So within our right of way, we could also have freight and interstate commerce. That is why it's all regulated under the federal umbrella. So why is vegetation critical to be controlled and maintained? Because under 49 CFR, the Federal Railroad Administration track safety standards require that we have clear access and clear vegetation from the right of way in order to reduce the fire hazards, in order to eliminate obstructions of visibility of railroad signs and signals, right of way and highway rail crossings, prevent railroad employees from conducting federal required inspections, and interfere with railroad employees performing their normal trackside duties, as well as prevent proper functioning of power signal and communication lines. So that is really important because at the federal level, this is standardized nationally. So how do we go about developing a rights of way VMP? Well, it covers maintenance activities to control vegetation over time through an integrated pest control program, which we call the Integrated Vegetation Management Program, under the jurisdiction of the DAR Rights of Way Management Program. And for the railroad, it covers chemical application and mechanical physical controls, with the objective that we manage and eliminate vegetation along the right of way in a sustainable manner. So what is the process? And this is really important for everyone to understand. I think every 5 years, there is a VMP vegetation management plan requirement, and that is that it's supplied, that it's updated, and town by town. For example, the MBTA commuter rail right-of-way has 102 towns currently. Every 5 years, we come to the towns, we present the maps with the different spray zones and the different plans to ensure that everyone is communicated. The town's Board of Health have a critical role, as well as the conservation commissions, to review these maps and also comment and otherwise inform MDAR or the operator of any new conditions otherwise not identified in previous years. The yearly operating plan falls under the jurisdiction and the approved vegetation management plan. And the yearly operating plan is defined as a program that outlines the different chemicals that are going to be used that year, with the time of year that it will be applied, and also any other additional requirements for vegetation controls. So this is really important because during every cycle of every year, every community, the 102 communities, will receive a notice at the beginning of the year that a yearly operating plan is available for their review. So how does the process work? So for the vegetation management 5-year plan, the VMP is submitted to DAR Rights of Way Management Program on or about July. There's a deadline of September 1st. So on or around July, between July and August, it is submitted to DAR, and it undergoes a comprehensive review within the state agency. And that review covers a 45-day public comment period where DAR completes the review with communities able to have a public hearing process. And then they publish the VMP on an EMN, on an environmental monitor program. Once the 45-day public comment period is concluded, DAR receives the comments, reviews, and sends to the applicants any required responses from the public and or any recommended revisions to the VMP. Once the VMP is revised, DAR submits to the advisory panel. And the advisory panel at the state level is comprised of different agencies, including Mass DEP, boards of health, and many other agencies. And you can find that information online. Once the advisory panel reviews the VMP, they send DAR the comments from the panel. And if there are significant changes to the VMP, DAR issues that VMP with all the comments to the applicant, and the applicant reviews and revises the plan for final submittal. And once that final submittal is completed, then DAR moves forward with a recommendation to the commissioner, and the commissioner would issue an approval letter. Our VMP for 2021 through 2025 was approved on February 3rd of 2021. So how does the yearly operating plan work? The yearly operating plan as well every year has to be submitted to the state, to DAR Rights of Way Management Program. The yearly operating plan as well is issued to all towns, to the Board of Health, and Board of Selectmen and commissions. This year it was submitted on March 12th of 2021 via certified mail. That initiates, once it's submitted to DAR, that initiates the process of review, and they publish the yearly operating plan on the environmental monitor. We also submitted to NHESP for a complete review of the proposed yearly operating plan. At that time, a 45-day comment period begins, and this year the comment period ended on May 21st, 2021. When the comment period ends, DAR receives all the comments, reviews, and sends to the applicant any required responses from the public and or revisions recommended by DAR to the yearly operating plan. Once all the revisions and communications have been concluded and DAR is finally in acceptance of the yearly operating plan, DAR will issue an approval letter. This year, the approval letter was issued in May 25th. Once that happens, the applicant must publish in general circulation communication 10 days prior to commencement of the yearly operating plan to all communities, notifying them that the yearly operating plan has been approved. And that was done on May 28th of 2021. And at that time, the yearly operating plan for the annual chemical application commences. And at that time, we began our yearly operating plan on June 14th of 2021. So the yearly operating plan describes detailed vegetation management operation for the calendar year, consistent with the terms of the long-term vegetation management plan. And what is critical is that we follow within the Rights of Way Management Program the specific requirements within the VMP to ensure that all vegetation is eliminated, removed from the valleys from specific areas For example, the ballast shoulder, yards, switches, signals, and signs, highway grade crossings, bridges, abutments and buildings, off-track areas, and inside curves. And the reason why well, not the reason, but how we do this is within that yearly operating plan, we develop a structured, if you will, maintenance plan that covers both chemical and mechanical. So chemicals to be applied pre-emergent are usually in spring, and post-emergent brush in late summer and early fall. The chemicals for off-track brush control occur late summer and fall. Chemicals used for stem treatment occur throughout the year as necessary. Mechanical controls throughout the year, and drainage, ditch clearing, and repair occurs throughout the year. So the chemical application process requires us to contract state certified licensed applicators. So MBTA and Keolis have contracted the services of licensed applicators to be able to follow through with the required controls of conducting chemical spray and herbicide application across the entire system and network in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. The maps define spray zones, limited spray zones, and no spray zones, and areas are depicted in the field with visual markers. Chemicals used are limited only to the approved right-of-way sensitive area materials list as published under the MDAR website. An environmental, and this is really important, an environmental monitor is assigned to guide application using the zone maps for right-of-way as approved by MDAR. So at any point and given time, wherever a chemical licensed applicator is along the right-of-way, we'll always have an environmental monitor with them. So I thought it would be important to kind of provide some high-level explanation of why and how we need to do vegetation clearing and the requirements. So the right-of-way, the MBTA right-of-way that we operate on, it's not a defined width. So between town to town, the width of the track structure, and when I talk about track structure, I'm talking about between ditch to ditch, this structure here, can vary depending on how many tracks, and also about physical barriers and controls. And the property line of MBTA will vary significantly between town to town. But this figure will actually depict what in essence would be required if we were to have a perfect right-of-way with perfect easements and perfect distances between center lines. So this area between ditch to ditch will always need to be fully cleared of vegetation. The track structure is built under the AREMA standards, and it's a specific structure that enables structural integrity or enables the engineering requirements to support the weight and the tonnage of trains, but also over time, it's a controlled environment that helps deflect water from the tracks into the ditches. So that is a really critical component of the track structure, because when we allow water to pond in this area, it destabilizes the structure asset, and it can also cause deflections over time and impede the asset functionality or original purpose and intent. So this is really important. Also, it's really important because this is all ballasted area. And in this area, any kind of vines, any kind of vegetation that may intrude in within this area may have an impact on how the structure performs over time. And when vegetation is within this area, it also creates pockets of air and sediments. And when those accumulate, then the integrity of the structure is compromised as well. A deflection of a track can cause significant operational safety hazards. And it's really critical that the track structure, when I'm talking track structure, this area is fully cleared of vegetation. Along the sides of the roadbed and the track structure, the adjacent shoulders, we have many different assets. We have signal bungalows, signal towers, PTC poles, and fiber optic lines, and different communication lines and other that also require ease of access and elimination of vegetation along these areas. So this is really important because nothing should encroach over and into the track structure. In 2019, we did a pilot project with a team of engineers, and we flew over the Ipswich Rowley line. This is a perfect example of how vegetation can truly become a hazard over time. When these things, when the vegetation encroaches over the tracks, it can cause potential derailments if the trees fall on the tracks with high winds or storms. It can also cause slippery rail and many other hazards for line of sight and visibility. And I think with that, I have my last slide. So how do we go about evaluating what are the critical aspects that we're going to maintain? So really, it falls onto a multidisciplinary approach and cross-department approach. So track inspections happen twice per week. The geocar inspections happen 4 times per year. And and the identification of rail defects at minimum 2 times per year and or as needed. We also do annual inspections on bridges and culverts and drawbridges 1 times per month. We evaluate statistical historical condition for target areas such as derailments, slippery rail incidents inspections, annual post-event and or as needed. We conduct visual surveys of lines via high rail with contractors and Keolis engineers, review and work with GPS-enabled video cameras as needed. We use drone for evaluation of canopy and other hazards along the right-of-way. And we evaluate areas utilizing MapGIS on an annual or as needed basis. The VMP maps and identified no spray zones are reviewed annual and as needed. And with this, we develop a plan. However, it's really important for communities to understand that the logistics of operations of the commuter rail and the way that we do maintenance activities, whether it's vegetation or other, are very much dependent on when we get track time outage permission, right? And sometimes we have multi-jurisdiction areas where if it's the Northeast Corridor, we're talking to Amtrak. Or if it's on the north side, we're talking to Pan Am or CSX or other freight or NEPRA, other freight and passenger lines, class 1 lines that are critical for us to be able to enable these programs. We really have a cross-jurisdiction planning and logistical very dynamic program. So at times we know where and how we need to do things, but we can only do certain things at a certain time, and it's very dynamic. And I think with that, I open it up for questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Does anybody have any questions for Clary on her presentation?
I have some resources here. I will provide this presentation to the Joint Transportation Committee. There are significant resources here that will allow further information for the Planning Commission, the Transportation Planning Commission to have access to as well.
Okay, you just answered one of my questions. I have one question for you. I'm Dan Salvucci from Whitman. I'm a selectman and also the vice chair of this board or committee. At our train station, we have an historic turntable that was when the trains were going through, the regular freight trains. On occasion, that historic turntable area has been overrun with vegetation. And the way we've solved that problem to make sure that it stays historical and people want to look at it is it becomes an Eagle Scout project, and we'll have whether it's Troop 22 or Troop 59, if they're going for an Eagle Scout, go in and clear the vegetation and make sure it's clean and we maintain that historical area. Would that be something that you would be doing, or is that something that the town deals with?
I would not know. I would have to look into it.
Yeah, I'm not saying whether or not it needs to be done now, because I haven't looked at it in quite a while, but it's just something I know has been done in the past. And I was just curious if that's something that on a regular basis, if someone down in the area, they may go and look at it and say, well, there is a lot of vegetation. We should clean it up to maintain the fact that it is historical and do something about it. Or if not, it's down on the list because it's not a safety issue.
Okay. You can send me the information. I can definitely look into it. My first thought is that if it's a historical site, and it might just fall under the town. But send me the information and I'll look into it.
Okay, I'll get that information to the Oak Colony Planning Council, if in fact it needs to be done. I'll deal with this. I'll talk with the Historical Commission in Whitman and see exactly how they feel about it also.
Okay.
Clary and Dan, I know that John Costa from the Avon Conservation Commission, I know he had some questions.
Yes, go ahead.
This is John Costa with the Avon Conservation Commission. I don't actually have a lot of questions. I want to thank you for your presentation, although I could have much easily read that. We could have got to this sooner. Avon's problem is some of your trucks run right over the wetlands that supply one of our key wells in town. And our concern is using chemicals in that area. We'd like to see if you can consider some other method of clearing those tracks in that area. I don't have the square footage, how many miles that is. It can't be very big because Avon's not that big. But that's our real concern, is the spreading of chemicals, whether it's annually or every 5 years, in an area that's very critical to the town.
So let me ask you something. Do you have a landmark or something that I can go back and review the maps and see exactly where you're seeing?
I would have to check with the chairman of the board. I'm not sure if we have such a mark or not. I would have to check with that.
Okay, so if there
But I can get
is,
that to you.
right. So I think one of the key things that I've found over time that's really important is Board of Health has a critical role in defining any new private wells and communicating that to DAR. I think one of the important aspects is that each town, when they received a yearly operating plan and the maps, the reason why it's done annually and the review in the 45-day comment period is done annually, it's because it is important for the towns to look at the maps and see what has changed. So the only way we would know if there's a new private well or a changed physical condition that requires attention is when that process commences and during the public meeting process. So every town has the access to communicate with DAR and communicate with them and let them know. So that way the state has a full register of all the private wells within your community. Once DAR has that information, they communicate that to us. We review, we do a site walk, we review the distance and the information provided, and we update the maps to incorporate that private well. But if the Board of Health or the town does not communicate that to DAR, then we don't know about that. And if the town during that 45-day comment period does not communicate that or does not bring that to the attention, we cannot, there wouldn't be any way for us to know. So I think that's a really relevant mention. I definitely want to look into it. So if you can send me the information specific to Avon, that would be important so that I can take a look at the maps and see if in fact that private well was communicated to DAR and it is included within our maps.
If I can speak on that now, this is not a new well. This well has
Okay.
been in operation for years.
Okay.
I'm guessing that, let me clarify, as you may or may not know, most of these governments work on part-time volunteers. I'm a volunteer on our Conservation Commission. We don't spend our entire life doing this. So it could be in our Conservation Commission for a number of years wasn't all that active. So that your memos may have come in and never gotten processed. We have a more active board this year. We look at everything that comes in. And the first question by everybody that's on that board now was, how can they spray an area that supplies one of our biggest wells in town? So it's not a new well, it's been there for years, but I will send you whatever information that I can get from the chairman when I talk to him. I did invite him to participate. I don't know if he was able to, I don't think he was able to make it though.
Okay.
If I can, if somebody at the end can email me your contact information, we'll get you whatever information you need. Our only objection is we'd prefer you not to spray in the watershed area and to use some other method of hand pulling or whatever else is not going to potentially and negatively impact our water supply.
So one of the key constraints that we have, which is very different to public utilities, and by the way, on a personal note, not on behalf of Keolis, I'm totally against chemicals and pesticides and herbicides. Unfortunately, for the rail right-of-way, when we're talking about control of vegetation in ballasted areas, there is no other feasible alternative other than chemical application to date. Right now, we have new technology being tested. There are other methods that could be used but not tested and not approved. So within a few years, that might change. But for now, there is no other alternative to chemicals to control vegetation in ballasted areas. And that's the limitation railroads have, different from public utilities. And so it's really important that is understood, right? And to the extent that we have, for example, implemented best management practices. For example, this area here, this is a public water supply, right? So
Yes,
what we do is, that's why we have an environmental monitor on site. Every year we review what are the conditions of these areas. So we use the INR crews inspections, and we communicate with them and ask them, when can you get out there and do mechanical? Because then the preferable approach would be to do mechanical on the shoulders of these areas to impede vegetation from encroaching on the tracks. And for these particular double blue lines, what dark blue lines, these areas are significantly controlled. So only spray can happen every 2 times. I mean, every other year. And what we do is we make sure that we have alternative means and controls for the shoulders. However, the track structure this does not apply to the track structure because there is no other mechanical form of removing vegetation from the roadbed and ballasted areas. So it's really important for the communities to understand that we do employ best management practices. And over time, the objective is that we have a cyclical methodology to controlling vegetation and reducing chemicals when, in fact, we wouldn't need them. So for example, if there is a tie job within this area, we would not spray at all. We would not spray the roadbed at all because the wooden ties, the disturbance of the areas and the wooden ties, we would not have to spray. So we've incorporated best management practices to ensure that we reduce as much as possible the chemical application.
And if I could just weigh in, because I know, John, you had put a message in the chat and I understood, but sometimes because there's a lot of different folks on this from in new roles. So going through this presentation in terms of what the management is really helpful to hear first and understanding. I know because this was something that was affecting Avon, but the presentation was really important to go through first. Clary, I think the idea is that this is going to be continued dialogue. Certainly Avon and John's questions are spot on. And I know, as Dan talked about in terms of historical issues that come up, the idea is that we now have your contact and particularly as it comes up to have these continual updates. And this should not be a one and done, that we would like to have you come back, perhaps like on an annual basis, because things do change. And I think that where, whether it's the regulations or whether things in the community, ultimately, in the end, it's about the safety of the rails. But it's also the safety to the point that, as a member of the Conservation Commission, the safety of the residents. So it's balancing those two and educating ourselves. And just by I had not seen this presentation before, very informative. It still raises some questions in terms of some other things, but as a regional planning agency, our role is really to gather this information and to continue to, this is being recorded, so this recording can be shared with our communities. So thank you. And thank you, John, for your question.
Absolutely, Mary. And I just wanted to add, just because I presented this today, it doesn't mean that next year or the year after, we won't have new implemented best management practices. We've actively been working on different pilots along the right-of-way to understand invasives controls, to understand how we can improve successional growth of vegetation with pollinator habitats. And we're piloting the reduction of certain chemicals within the sensitive area materials list, such as glyphosate. So there are many things that we're trying to implement and that are undergoing pilot testing right now. So within a year, things may have changed, and for the better as well.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Terry, for that presentation.
You're welcome.
Very informative.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
That being said, we'd like to get back to item 5, reports. Brockton area, let's see. Brockton Area Regional Transit Authority back. We'll be doing that, either Michelle or Glenn, Michael or Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you for that great presentation. Starting our report today, just wanted to reiterate that there is a TSA order in effect that if you are riding on the bus, that you must wear a mask and continue to do so. Our drivers are still supplying masks for those who may need them. We received some great news last week when the Massachusetts Senate met. They completed a override of the governor's budget veto of the line item that incorporated the budget for the transit authorities in Massachusetts. That includes an additional $3.5 million that will be spread throughout the regional transit authorities across the Commonwealth. They're going to provide those funds via a formula that primarily focuses on ridership, but also includes our square mileage and the populations of our service area communities. So they'll be taking that into consideration, and we'll have more updates about impacts that come of that. We are working to evaluate our facilities and also our fleet in preparation for transforming our fleet into electric vehicles. So we're excited to start that program progress, and we'll have updates as we continue that plan. We are undergoing an effort to better understand our bus shelters and amenities throughout the city, who and how and why and when people are using our transit. So in order to evaluate that, we're looking to add bus shelters throughout our service area. I think I talked about this last month. So if people are looking for new or updated passenger amenities along our bus routes, please reach out to us. We're updating solar lighting, providing new shelters, and where we are starting this program is to update the bus stop over at the Market Basket at the Westgate Mall to increase that area for loading and unloading, make some safety improvements there. So that's where we're starting that project, but it will be ongoing. We have an ongoing commuter rail initiative project going on with the MBTA, and that has been approved to be extended through March 15th of 2022. If people need more information about that, they can reach out to me. We are offering discount, well, not we, but the MBTA is offering discounted commuter rail rides for those who live in the city of Brockton. So we're managing that program, and it's only available to 250 people. And that's all I have today. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Does anyone have any questions for her? Saying none, we'll move on to item B, Greater Attleboro Taunton Regional Transit Authority, GATRA. Sean, that's yours.
Yes, thank you, Dan. Just a couple of quick updates with GATRA. They are looking at changing a couple of routes in Plymouth, and they are having 3 public meetings that are open to the public, one of which will be in the town of Plymouth on Wednesday, October 20th at 3 p.m. At the Plymouth Public Library on South Street. Other than that, they are also adding a 3rd vehicle to their GATRA Go service in South Plymouth. And they're reporting that that program has been very successful.
Thank you very much, Sean. Moving on to C, South Coast Rail. That's Sean again.
Yes, thank you again, Dan. As everybody knows, South Coast Rail has been moving on over the last couple of years. You know, as previously mentioned, South Coast Rail consists of 2 phases. Phase 1, which is going on currently, will provide a 1-seat ride from the Fall River, New Bedford area to Boston by extending the existing Middleborough Lakeville line over west towards Taunton, and then heading south and branching off for Fall River at New Bedford. Service will be delivered to the South Coast by late 2023. The second phase, which is the full build, plans to extend the commuter rail service down the Stoughton branch of the Providence Stoughton line connecting to additional communities, going south into the towns of Easton, I believe Raynham, and then down into the city of Taunton. During this past month, more work was conducted in Assonet. There was one railroad grade crossing that was worked on there, as well as 2 others in Lakeville. There was also 24-hour daytime track work conducted in Assonet, and then just additional work done was at station and layover sites from Middleborough to New Bedford, and then also from Berkeley to Fall River. And then transportation of soils by truck was delivered to 2 stockpile locations in the Sonnet and then another in Fall River, and then soil excavated from work along the right of way in the Middleborough and New Bedford lines were transported to the new Middleborough and Freetown stations. And if anybody's interested in receiving the weekly updates for South Coast Rail, you can click on the following link and then enter your email address to have the updates emailed directly to you.
Thank you very much, Sean. Does anybody have any questions of Sean? Seeing none, let's move on to item 6, old business. TIP program transportation 2021 to 2025. Charlie, that's yours.
Yep, thank you, Dan. So we're beginning the new work program. So it's beginning off in federal 2022. And as Bill is scrolling through the screen, this is our menu of projects. You all should be familiar with this, and we're available to answer any questions, but here on your screen highlighted in yellow is what we have for project updates, and we have updates on 2 different projects. And the first is in Abington, the Hancock and Chestnut Street project. The MassDOT comments on the 25% design have been returned to the design engineer, and that was about a month ago. So that's good to see that project moving ahead as it is programmed in the physically constrained TIP. And the next project update we have is in Stoughton on Turnpike Street. And here similar to the Abington project, MassDOT comments on their 25% design package have been returned to the design engineer as of, hey, about a month ago as well. And one of the surprising things about this project is the dramatic cost increase. And this is where you may know where the road has been was originally reconstructed in the 90s, and then since that time the road itself has been sinking. There's a big layer of peat, and that's been being compressed. So MassDOT and the design engineers have come up with different alternatives how to address that project, and hence the escalated price. But that's what we have for specific updates. We're available for any questions that the folks on the call might have.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions of Charlie? Seeing none, let's move on to 7, new business. We've already done A. We're going to go to B, the road safety audit at multiple locations. Bill.
Thank you, Dan. So just just a review of the past program year, and also looking forward to this current new year. So as you know, throughout the FFY 2021, we launched a road safety audit program to look at high crash locations in the region. And it was a mix of a data-driven process to identify high crash locations, but also working with the communities on safety priorities in their towns. And we were very happy to conduct 15 road safety audits throughout the region. The towns of Abington, Bridgewater, Brockton, East Bridgewater, Easton, Hanover, Kingston, Plymouth, Stoughton, and West Bridgewater. And many of those reports have been distributed. Some of them are still in development, and we'll be wrapping those up in the next couple of weeks as we simultaneously launch the program going into 2022. It was very successful. And safety is a need that's not going anywhere. So we did decide to continue this program into this program year. And so we're going through that same data-driven process now, and we'll soon be reaching out to the communities. So we actually have 3 locations so far identified that we'll be doing road safety audits so far this fall. 1 in the city of Brockton and 2 in the town of Duxbury. And the next week or so, every community will be getting an email from me with my spreadsheet that I have developed with ranking of intersections in each community, just to kind of kick off the process and get them thinking about where they might want to do road safety audits, but it doesn't have to be necessarily confined to that list. It is a pretty expansive list. I think I have something like 600 total, 600 and change total intersections in the region in my system, but obviously there's more, and there might be a location in the community that the town wants to do a road safety audit. And also note that my system, it's intersection specific. So each of those locations is an intersection, but there could be a road segment that the community would like to look at, and that's certainly on the table as well. So we're very excited to be bringing this back. And in the staff report is a scope of work for the coming year. I won't read through it, but if there's any questions or comments, I'm happy to entertain them.
Is there any questions for Bill on this issue? Well, seeing none, let's move on to C, high priority corridor study screening assessment. And I am not even going to begin to try and pronounce the gentleman that's going to do it. How do you pronounce that?
Hi, my name is Guochang Li, the Principal Transportation Planner.
Welcome.
OCPC.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is my mark 4th month with OCPC. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm going to introduce you to a new project, High Priority Corridor Study Screening Assessment. It's a new project of this kind. The project objective is to conduct a high priority corridor study screening assessment of state number routes, also the federally functional class as arterial segments that will identify, rank, and inform the selection process for the location to conduct any future corridor and intersection studies. So this will help inform the 2023 long-range transportation plan needs and assessments. So this project will apply a holistic approach to analyzing, but also quantifying the problems and the forming recommendations to ensure the need for all transportation users are considered. More specifically, the bicycle, pedestrian, bus transit, rail transit, and freight movements. Some potential criteria for the corridor examination scoring will mainly include safety, congestion, multimodal significance, regional significance, including economic and the special locations, regional equity, accessibility, implementation potentials. We also added some criteria like climate vulnerability on the roadways, like any other infrastructure deficiency, including bridges, pavement conditions. There are 4 main components and process for this project. I've already listed on the screen. I'd like to point out this project incorporate all previous major plans, including congestion management plan, safety management plan, land use plan, any other travel demand model and simulation tools will be included in this study. In this fiscal year 2023, staff, including myself, Ray, also the co-lead for this project, we will be reviewing a lot of traffic data, conducting in-house travel demand modeling and simulation, as well as synchro analysis in order to assist finding those criteria. So we will be conducting traffic planning, operation analysis will be forming a framework and assessment criteria list for project planning. Staff will also score each arterial segment and assign a priority of low, medium, high to each segment. That will also include the specific scoring. The last but not least is we will prepare a brief high-level report, and we also include all the table scoring criteria we will be used in the study and project. So if you have any questions, we'll have to
All
answer.
right, thank you. Do you have any questions on this subject?
Hi, Mary.
No questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to, where are we now? Let's see, D, freight planning and action plan. Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Someone did have their hand up.
Yep,
Mary Ellen.
Mary Ellen has her hand up.
Okay, sorry. Mary Ellen?
Sorry, I was clicking on chat and I clicked the wrong button, I guess. I was just trying to
Okay.
see the chat. All set.
Oh, so you're all set? Okay, thank you. Ray, I guess you're up.
Yep. I am going to try to share my screen because I did have a PowerPoint.
It's on the screen, Ray.
Oh, it's on the screen? Okay. Oh, there it is. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Bill. All right. Could you go down to the next? Okay. So let me see. So this study that I'm going to talk about is the freight planning and action plan. So in fiscal 2022, we're going to commence a study on freight. And so our objectives are to, we want to integrate the freight into the overall transportation planning process. So we're going to be thinking about freight and all our other studies too, like as Coach Chang just showed us, that we're going to be choosing some corridor studies, and we're going to have a system to choose corridor studies. We're going to integrate freight into those studies. We want to look at our long-term freight needs, and also incorporate into the long-range transportation plan. Funding, we're going to identify funding, and of course, it's about mobility and safety of the traveling public. Those are our objectives. We're going to update some of the previous studies. In 2014, we did a regional freight and goods movement study. We also did a intermodal connection study in 2014. And we're going to build on the findings of the Mass DOT's 2018 freight study. Next, please. So we're going to develop a regional freight profile, and that includes trying to identify trip generators of freight in the region, and the amount of goods that are coming into the region and going out and moving through the region, to try to get a handle on the freight movement. We're going to look at some strategies and projects that could be implemented into the MPO's plans. We're also going to consider the target performance targets, travel truck time reliability performance measures and targets, inventory weight and height restrictions, and also turning radii, which is an issue in Brockton for trucks. Some of the other issues for truckers are rest stop locations for long distance truckers. We're going to look at the freight volumes in the truck volumes in the region, but also see what's going to happen in the future, and try to look at some get a handle on what the future freight volumes will be. And of course, we're going to look at capacity and infrastructure deficiencies and bottlenecks and safety concerns. Next, please. And this next slide just shows on the federal level what the US DOT goals are for freight. They emphasize safety, improving safety and security and resilience on the freight system, modernize the infrastructure, and prepare for the future future technologies and for freight system performance. Last one, please. And so that was just a quick overview of what we're going to be doing on this project in fiscal year 2022. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions? Anybody have any questions for Ray? I only have one comment, Ray, on his freight.
Yep.
I've noticed with the recent accidents of trucks, things coming out of trucks and off of trucks and off the backs of the trucks moving freight. I'm finding that when I'm on, like, we'll say 95 or something like that, and I'm driving, say, up towards New Hampshire, there's a lot of weigh stations that are there that are not open anymore. And I'm wondering if we need to get back into that so they can look at vehicles. I mean, I've just had a new windshield put on my car because I had a rock come off the back of a dump truck and it bounced and hit my car. Unfortunately, thank God, the insurance covers the windshield, but it's just something, it's a danger. And I'm wondering if we need to start looking at the way these trucks are maintained as far as what they're hauling to maintain safety on the highway. My observation.
Yeah, Massachusetts has regulations. Definitely, you have to cover like dump trucks. You have to cover the materials and back. I noticed on the highways is the debris. A lot of times, the debris actually comes from small trucks, from pickup trucks. Right. But the bigger trucks are definitely. There was a problem with debris on the highway. Creating crashes and incidents.
Right. Where we've just had a couple of tractor trailers where the person said they fell asleep. There's no place for them to, the bed down. Things like that need to be looked at.
Yeah, definitely. Long haul truckers need a place to pull the truck over and take some time to get some rest. Definitely.
Yeah. So, yeah. My observation. Okay. Does anybody else have anything for Bill?
Through the chair.
Yes.
Hey, hi, this is Bruce.
Hi, Bruce.
CSX has this, precision scheduled railroading. And since they are the class 1 carrier, rail freight carrier that serves our area, if you're not aware of what PSR is, you might want to look at it. But I know it's an attempt to schedule the freight service. And, of course, I'm not obsessed with it, but I'm interested in it. It'd be interesting for you to look into it. Yeah, I am obsessed with it. But it would be interesting to look at as far as the local freight service in the area. Talk to the CSX people, see what the effects of PSR are on, the service on, for example, the Stoughton branch and the transload facility, the Cohino transload facility over there in one of the Stoughton industrial parks.
Now, what is the acronym again for, Bruce?
PSR, Precision Scheduled Railroading. There's actually an interesting book written by a man named Hunter Harrison, who was the inventor of PSR, and he implemented it in several railroads. The last railroad that he implemented it in was CSX before he passed away. But it would be interesting for you to read up on and take a look at it, because it really is a factor in modern rail freight planning and scheduling.
So I'm wondering if that's because they share the lines with the commuter rail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's beyond that, guys. Believe me. It's of course the primary objective of PSR is to increase shareholder income, and by that what they do is they run longer, slower freight trains. They schedule it. They attempt to actually schedule the service, but they try to do more with less. They try to more efficiently use the locomotives and the equipment that they have.
Mhm.
But it beyond that big picture, it also boils down to local service. And some people say that it has affected the local freight service, but you're going to find that out, I'm sure, when you look at it.
Thank you for the tip, Bruce.
Yeah, thank you.
That it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Now let's move on to 8, other business, community local technical assistance study. Bill?
Thank you, Dan. So I just have a couple updates. We did complete a couple of projects in the past month. So one was for the town of Kingston. We did a traffic study of Smith's Lane between Route 3 and Crescent Street, looking specifically at heavy vehicle traffic and speeds between that stretch. And so we've sent the town the data and some preliminary findings. And the town of Plymouth, an ongoing project, we provided an updated traffic counts for Clark Road and Beaver Dam Road to assist the town in working with MassDOT. And finally, a couple other projects going on. Plymouth this fall, probably more towards Thanksgiving, the holiday season, given the retail environment there. We'll be doing traffic counts on Commerce Way to help the town prepare or establish a legal speed limit on that roadway. And then in West Bridgewater, we have an ongoing project right now looking at traffic conditions on 3 roadways with specific regard to heavy vehicle traffic. And those roadways are Howard Street, Prospect Street, and Walnut Street. And so the data has been collected and we're just processing and analyzing that now. So that is your update.
Thank you very much, Bill. Anybody have any questions for Bill? Seeing none, we'll go to item B, staff reviews on ENF, EIRs, and the NPCs. Kyle?
Thank you, Dan. So we have one new project, one new ENF. It's for in Kingston, Greystone Village. So this project is going to be taking place over a course of 4 to 5 years. Once that starts, the early impacts will be demolition of structures and removal of impervious surfaces. And then after that, it's going to be the construction of 24 single-family homes, and that's going to be they'll be serviced by individual private septic systems. And it's also noted that the project's going to be removing commercial manufacturing facility, Kingston Trailers, as well as a commercial space. I guess it was a martial arts facility, as well as an existing house. And then next we have an EIR for proposed beach and dune nourishment in Marshfield and Duxbury. And the single EIR that was released on September 8th, and comments for that are due by October 8th. Next is a DEIR for Lincoln Park in West Bridgewater, and that was released on September 22nd, and the comments for that are due by October 22nd. And we have one certificate that's for the former National Fireworks site in Hanover and Hanson. And that certificate, that states that the project that is going to require a submission of an EIR. And then in a separate draft record of decision, there's a proposal to grant a waiver, which will allow the proponent to proceed with the phase 1 of the project prior to completing the MEPR process for the whole project. And then lastly, we have a couple public notices. The first is for Avon Hydrogeologic Evaluation Scope of Work. And this is for a proposed soil absorption system. And that's going to be for a subsurface disposal of 230,000 gallons per day of treated wastewater. And that's in the vicinity of the Avon Industrial Park.
You got that, Nance?
Next is the MIPA regulatory review update. So MIPA has issued amended regulations for public comment, and comments for that are due by October 20th. And the new interim protocol is going into effect for all ENFs and EENFs as of October 1st. So that entails
Danny, do you have an Allen wrench?
all new projects filing within the MIPA office. They're required to attach to the ENF or the expanded ENF the output report generated from the RMAT Climate Resilience Design Standards tool. And new project filings must also complete the new climate change adaptation and resiliency section added to the ENF form. And then for more detailed information on that, you can find that on the MIPA website. And that concludes my report.
Mm,
I think Dan's
Dan-
gone.
Dan's muted. He's here, but he's muted.
I was muted.
Yeah, you are.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Anybody have any questions for Kyle? Saying none. Any going on to see regional concerns? Does anyone have any regional concerns on transportation issues?
I just want to recognize town planner Christine Stickney from the town of Hanover. She joined the meeting, so just wanted to recognize her and welcome her.
Welcome. That it? Saying none, I guess next is motion for adjournment. Do I hear a motion?
So moved, Mary Anderson from West Bridgewater.
Do I hear a second? Nobody wants to leave?
Second.
Okay. That being said, I guess all in favor? Do we need a roll call or just raise your hand?
Just all usually just
Aye.
there you go.
There you go.
Fine.
We're all set.
Aye.
All right. We'll see you next month.
Take
Thank you.
care. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Well,
All right. Thank you.